Limerence. The state of being obsessively infatuated with someone, usually accompanied by delusions of or a desire for an intense romantic relationship with that person. Parasocial relationships are one-sided relationships where one person extends emotional energy, interest, and time, and the other party, the persona, is completely unaware of the other person's existence. Parasocial relationships are most common with celebrities, organizations such as sports teams, or television stars. This has always been an embarrassing story to tell. My limerence for an old flame in my late adolescent years nearly destroyed my identity and life. It never got as bad as the twin flame cult. I wasted years of my life emotionally chasing someone who wasn't even a real option for me. 10 years of chasing a limerence relationship all started with my parasocial relationships with mass media personalities. I grew up in my own little world of loneliness and fantasy, loving movies and television. As a small child, watching E.T. with my cousins and a feeling of collective experience of Eliot's story sent me on a path to search out that large-scale emotional experience in my real life. As an only child, I spent a lot of time alone, daydreaming about finding a group of people who'd really get me. My movie star crushes, such as River Phoenix, lived in my dreamy world with me. These personalities understood me. We went on adventures together. I wrote fan fiction of our hidden lives. As a little 5-year-old, we had similar interests and hobbies in my little imagination. As adolescence grew to be isolating, confusing, I went even more into my parasocial relationships, spending hours alone in my room listening to music, daydreaming about how said person really understood me. I was their number one fan. They were speaking directly to me. However, there was a problem. None of these people knew who I was. As I projected my actual emotional needs onto movie and music stars, any healthy interest in actual real people disappeared. They could never measure up to the glory of this mystical person on a mass media pedestal. These parasocial relationships substituted real people I needed. 12-year-old me could not handle the latchkey kid lifestyle of emotional neglect. I carried shame and embarrassment for having any needs in general. So media personalities became my reliable family. A parasocial relationship will rarely reject you or correct you. One-sided relationships rarely demand self-reflection or self-correction. Whoever was my daydream of the week, they were also included in my escape fantasy. Dreams of being plucked out of a crowd and lifted away where I'd be understood and never experience loneliness filled my days. Even though I did learn how to socialize and have external friendships, the early seeds of limerence were just waiting to be triggered. When I met the big one, the first man I had a relationship that even matched any of my daydreams, my parasocial relationship with strangers transformed into a limerent state aimed at this big one. Beautiful, charismatic, and sensitive. The big one walked into my life just like a movie star that I had longed for years. while we did connect emotionally, I turned this little nugget of connection and made a loaf of emotional bread out of it. When I needed emotional support, I went back to those moments and fed on them. I made emotional blankets out of this little piece of thread, hoping to weave a real long-term serious relationship out of it. But this is what I had been doing as a child. My parents had to work so often, my expressed emotions were usually ridiculed and loudly dismissed. You're on your own. Go find somebody else. I don't know how to help you. Typical sentences I heard daily. Therefore, I projected my needs onto people on screen. As an adult, I just did the same. Only this time, it was a real person. We did have a connection and even a friendship, but it was not healthy. Because I was not healthy, and neither was he. But in my head, everything would just be perfect if this person loved me. No healthy or stable person could ever measure up to the big one. With awareness of limerence becoming more widely known, I see many of my fellow latchkey kids with similar afflictions. A pattern of the emotionally neglected child projecting limerence onto a person feels like the magical thinking that I had about my parents. Waiting for my parents to pick me up from somebody's house reminded me of waiting for the big one to pay attention to me. Like my parents, I would have to earn their praise or attention in some way, and then I'd get them, and everything would be perfect. The one positive outcome I experienced with having parasocial relationships is finding fan communities which formed into real friendships. These real friendships helped make me a better person and make reality livable. Yet, limerence tendencies persisted, pushing away potential partners and holding space for a state of limerence worked perfectly for my avoidant attachment style. Self-awareness and self-compassion is key. If you have these tendencies or patterns, reflect on them. We live in an era of digital personalities replacing our physical and emotional needs on a wide scale. I feel for this generation growing up in this culture. I know how confusing and terrifying it can be, and it's just becoming a cultural norm. Have I conquered limerence? No. Let's just say I cope with it. I'm hoping sharing my story can help you, someone you know, deal with limerence and escapist tendencies as well. And hopefully, if I help you, I help myself. Thank you for listening.